Hello and good morning. I know I changed. Now my hair's brown. Like, let me try to be normal for a little while. No makeup either. But what I wanted to go into is voodoo, a tradition of magic and interconnected realms. I wanted to go into voodoo today is because, it's like people are so afraid of it. And then it's like, I wanted to know more about it. So then I went and I just looked into it, the Gaia site. I looked into the Gaia site. I'm going to just use this one article. I'm going to probably find other articles later on, and then I'll talk about it again. And I'll reference the other articles. But in this one, I'm going to include the link for Gaia. And on this topic, what is voodoo? A tradition of magic and interconnected realms, is a 5-minute read, so it's not long, by Lisa Trank. She wrote this October 7th of 2020. And again, like, what I want this channel is for transformation, spirituality, and this one is for esoteric spiritual traditions. So it talks about all of that. So when the word voodoo arises, it's usually accompanied with misconceptions, fear, and lack of understanding. It's because people don't understand. Like, they don't understand what it is, and they get scared because people do so many wicked things, and you get scared of it. But often thought of as a violent cult, the truth couldn't be farther from the popular cultural associations, such as voodoo dolls, witch doctors, and violenting sorcery. Voodoo, more apparently known as voodoo, that's V-O-D-O-U, is an ancient and diversely practiced religious tradition tied to Africa, the Caribbean, and the Catholic Church. So then that's why it's connected, because the Catholic Church, they practice all this stuff. They just hide it in the church. They hide it in God and the Pope and, and the priests and all this stuff. But they sit there and they practice everything. The black magic, everything, because there's spells in the Bible. The Psalms are a book of spells, like protection. Is for power. It's for all these things. Like, the Bible has so many spells inside the Bible, and the Psalms, that part by itself is nothing but spells. The Psalms. But you will have to do your own research, and you will see for yourself. What exactly is voodoo? Voodoo, a rich tradition born from trauma. That's what it says. The word voodoo, Vodun, that's with the V-O-D-U-N, translates to mean the spirit of God. Voodoo is monotheistic religion. Followers, or voodooistants, believe in one divine figurehead called Bondi, or the good God. Additionally, voodoo has a lesser god hierarchy, Iwa, as well as Iowa, I-O-A. Iwa is I-W-A, who are engaged with the day-to-day life than Bondi, who is considered to be more remote. The Iowa and Iwa are split into 3 families: Rada, Petro, and Gidi. You would have to look at the article so you could see the spelling of the words, so you can get a better understanding. But humans and El Lawa have a reciprocal relationship in which believers provide sustenance and objects in exchange for Liwa's protections. So that's like when you're giving offerings to the god, or they're giving objects, they're giving substance. Like, we give rum, we give wine, you give fruits, you make something, a dish, and you give it to them. It's not exchange, it's like you're giving it to them, but your spirits will always be there for you. But with voodoo, it's an exchange for protection. Like, you have to give them something. If you want something, you must have to give them something. Voodoo combines traditions from Africa and the Caribbean. That's like the Dominican Republic, Haiti, Jamaica, all the islands in the Caribbean. That's where this is from. Africa, Caribbean, and Native Americans. That's people in Native America, you know. Catholicism. There's evidence that as far back from 1492. That's crazy. 1492. That's the year they say Christopher Columbus discovered America. That's why they talk about the Native Americans, because the Native Americans, they practice whatever they practice, the Native American things, their culture, the Taino culture. Wow. Many in the Taino culture were executed for their practice of voodoo during Christopher Columbus. Yeah, that's why I referenced the 1492. I was like, that was the time Christopher Columbus discovered America, conquering of Hispaniola. But as the slave trade grew, so did voodoo and the newly arrived African slaves. And surviving the Taino found much in common of their shared rituals and approaches to healing. So we were the same, you know. And the Catholics, we have slaves, and then we wanted to still practice our religion in Catholics. So, and then the deities were hidden in the saints, and that's how they practice it, because it was hidden in the saints. So certain saints, are certain deities. It was just hidden in the saints. Voodoo does not have a central scripture. I know it's gonna, whatever I just said, like the deities are hidden in the saints, like reading this article, they have to mention it somewhere, because I know if my family grew up Catholic and then I want to do Santeria, and then they have the Santeria and the Caridad del Cobre was hidden. So it's like Oshun was hidden in the saints. And I'm like, wow, like, so it was always a part of growing up. Anyway, back to the article. Voodoo does not have a central scripture. It is community-centric and supports individualism. New Orleans is North America's voodoo epicenter, where it arrived through the slave trade from West Africa during the 18th century. Catholicism was primary religion in the city, and what is now known as New Orleans voodoo. It is actuality a hybrid between the two traditions. New Orleans voodoo has become so ingrained in the city's culture that one need only search online to see multitude of shops, tourist attractions, and other popular destinations that keep the tradition alive. So you remember like the cartoon, it was like Tiana, the Princess and the Frog, right? And they were in New Orleans, and then they had voodoo in New Orleans. They had voodoo in the cartoon, and they were in New Orleans, and then they had the witch doctor that was, you know, that turned this dude into the frog and had to kiss the, you know, it was a whole thing. But in New Orleans, they do voodoo, and then now they said it in this article that New Orleans is a place where it's like an epicenter. It's like a big deal. Everybody does it. They have all these shops, all these places to go to, because that's what people do. It's normalized. What is a voodoo doll? Actually, it's a healing tool. So it's a tool, a healing tool. The mere mention of voodoo doll brings painful and revenge-filled pins and needles stuck in a cloth to the mind for most people. So it's true, like you think somebody's gonna make a little voodoo doll of you and stick pins or break the neck, the legs, the arms, and just start fucking with you for no reason, because they want, because they know how. But what is behind this practice? Let's see, right? The truth behind the practice of making voodoo dolls couldn't be further from this myth. Unlike the dolls that are sold to tourists, authentic voodoo dolls are created for healing purposes, as well as to help communicate with those who have passed away, and are used in rituals to invoke the Iwa or Loa for spiritual guidance. Voodoo dolls are human effigies, figurines which represent an idealized persona or deity. Dating back to the Assyrian culture of the first millennium BCE, there is little evidence that any voodoo dolls are intended to cause harm or seek revenge. However, the mythology behind voodoo dolls being used for evil purposes might be traced to the 1950s, when Haitian cashew dolls were imported into the United States. The eyes of the dolls were made from a castor beans and caused a swallowing danger for young children, leading to the dolls being banned as lethal. Because they were made in Haiti. Cashew dolls were imported in the United States. The eyes of the dolls were made from a form of castor beans. So castor beans, and caused a swallowing danger. So they banned it. But it wasn't voodoo. They just banned it because it was a hazard. Voodoo dolls have specific colors and corresponding energies associated with each pin. So they put them in bullets. So red is for power, black is for warding off negativity, white is for positivity, blue is for love. Wow. Green is money and prosperity, yellow is success, and purple spirituality. So in reference to the colors, like, it's the same as with candles. The authentic practice surrounding the dolls is connected to our relationship with the other world, a central tenet to voodoo regardless of the country of influence or origin. Santeria. Santeria versus voodoo versus hoodoo, spiritual cousins or distant relatives. So it's all the same. It's all the same kind of practice. People just get so scared of these terms, Santeria, voodoo, hoodoo. It's because they don't know. So people get scared of what you don't know. So once you do your own research and you find out, like, what is going on? What is she talking about? Like, oh my God, this is evil. It's not evil. There's good behind it. It's just people don't know the good because a lot of people do evil things. So, and then once they hear it, they think the evil part. They don't see the good part in it. But back to the article. Santeria versus voodoo versus hoodoo, spiritual cousins or distant relatives. While hoodoo may incorporate aspects of the voodoo religion, it is in itself not a religion. Hoodoo is a transcultural folk practice centered on the earth and botanical rituals, many of which originated in Africa, but with connections and roots throughout North America. For example, there's a rich tradition of the Appalachian Mountains hoodoo practitioners that is unique and connected to more ancient hoodoo traditions. Everything is connected to Africa. So all these practices are connected to Africa because people were taken out of Africa and spread throughout the world. Santeria, like voodoo, is a religion based on one god who is served by lesser deities, as well as communicating with the other world. The word Santeria can be translated into the meaning the way of the saints. So that's why Santeria was in the religion, in the Catholic religion, and then the way of the saints. So, and then the saints that's in the Catholic religion, the deities were hidden in the saints. So that's how you could put Catholic religion and Santeria in it, because it was hidden. It says it, and it's also heavily influenced by Catholicism. Much like voodoo, the one major difference between the two is that Santeria is based in Spanish-speaking cultures, with the deepest connections in Cuba and Mexico. So that's what Santeria is, mostly based in Spanish-speaking cultures. Deepest connections in Cuba and Mexico. So Santeria is like Voodoo, Hoodoo, whatever, but Santeria, more Spanish people do Santeria. Okay. A history of Voodoo's oppression, visible and invisible worlds. What's that? The cat is in the closet. Tommy, you okay? He's okay. A history of Voodoo's oppression, visible and invisible worlds. Similar to many other transplanted religions, Voodoo has often had to adapt to the dominant culture in North America. In North America, as African slaves were forbidden to practice their native traditions and religions, the only way they could get around this oppression was to associate their voodoo deities and adapt their rituals to the reflective of the images, iconography, and the saints of the Catholic Church. That's like what I was saying, like the deities were hidden within the saints in the church. So everybody did it. They just hid it. It was always kept secret. This is not unlike the experience of the native shit. And this is not unlike the experience of the Native American culture and Christianity. Like many traditions, the relationship between the visible and invisible are interconnected. Like many traditions, they're visible and so it's kept hidden. So it's like, you know, they're connected, but it's kept hidden so no one can figure it out. With death being another part of our spiritual journey, it is some sort of voodoo, dark, or black magic. Black magic is everywhere and everybody does it, and it is hidden. It's hidden in the church. It's hidden in all of these religions, all of these things. It's hidden, but it's known. Like everybody knows about it. It's just nobody talks about it. They act like you're crazy or whatever. Like no one wants to talk about it, but everybody does it. Gotta wake up. You have to wake up. Similar to many non-Judeo-Christian traditions, the term magic is often used to describe a ritual or observance that is unknown or outside dominant religious practices. This misunderstanding or lack of knowledge can translate into the air of mystery, as well as feed into the fears and misconceptions. That's why people get so scared when you talk about it. You talk about voodoo, you talk about Santeria, you talk about anything, and they just get so scared. They feed into the fears of it. In fact, voodoo magic is made up of many intricate and ancient rituals that are connected to the earth, the elements, as well as to the realms beyond our physical world, and many of which are part of a very rich, mystical human fabric. I just wanted to look into this article because it was interesting, and I know that it's hidden in the church and the saints and the deities and everything. It's like everybody knows about magic, black magic, like everybody knows. They just act like they don't know, but it's in the church. Like it's in the church. Whatever you want to do, whatever you want to practice, they want to say, oh, it's evil, oh, it's bad, oh, you can't do it. So then that's why people hide it and they still do it, and they just hide it and act like they don't do anything. You know, that's the world that we live in. So you have to pay attention and you have to know your history. When you know your history, then everything, it lines up, it fits. Like you'll understand so much more once you know what's really going on, because everybody lies. Everybody lies. That's the government. They lie to get things to go into their favor. They put fear in you to make you scared of finding out the truth in things. So it's like you have to do your own research, you have to study, and you have to know your history so you can know what's going on. Lead with love. Lead with love. Do everything out of love. And I'll come back later and talk about something else. Thanks for watching. Bye.